A lot has happened in Algeria since I built this device. There's been terrorism without end. People were afraid. There was poverty. It's a revolution of freedom, a revolution of smiles. Many say we've regained our dignity, but it's much more than that. We've become normal people again. They were paralyzed by that fear. And since 2005, where this device is there, I've seen a change in the population. Despite terrorism, they've started to just stand up and not fear. Since February 22nd, Algerians have been peacefully calling for the overthrow of their authoritarian and corrupt regime. This has brought the country to ruin. The fear is overcome. A whole nation is united in calling for change. Citizens are determined to take their fate into their own hands. Because this vortex, what happens in the middle? This transformation, it happens where the flower of life is. Dodecahedron, for example, this formation in my water. This is love. It's a magnet, and this love transforms everything. We formed a unit, and that was something special. Because our society had been divided and fragmented by the regime for years. But at that moment, everyone stuck together. There were no animosities. All accepted each other, regardless of the differences, including political ones. On art, go on YouTube, see what's been happening in Algeria for the last 6 months. I'm always in the background. Yes, that's my work. Look at how this change happened. How people became different, and they don't go back because they've discovered something. They discarded their fear, and this is paradise. This life is a joy. This life is really, it's worth living for. For 20 years, Abdelaziz Bouteflika ruled over Algeria as sole ruler, but when he announces another candidacy, the people take to the streets. Wilhelm Reich, he said, there are two forces that come out of an impulse. The first, when it comes up, splits into fear. The opposite of fear is not hate, as many think. It's love. When I love, I open up. I'm not afraid. I can conquer the world. This facility has to do with those powers and the people who come near it. Back when I started, I realized that, why did this happen to Algeria? And the people who come to me at Desert Greening, they say, what energy you have here. What's going on here? We feel so, kind of, they can't help wondering. On February 22nd, Algiers held its breath. The regime has mobilized the forces of law and order, as is customary at the slightest sign of demonstration. But this time, the police officers do not prevent the Algerians from gathering in the streets of the capital. When the overall climate, the overall atmosphere of a certain area, of a country, is changed, when people saw that somehow HAARP doesn't work there, that you cannot influence the people. But through this system, I found out later, nothing happened. We live in a country where demonstrations are banned. So when people demonstrate, it's an act of disobedience. The first ones to hit the streets were arrested by the police. So all the others who came afterwards knew that they were in danger of being arrested, but they kept going anyway. They overcame their fear and defied the ban by the dictatorship. That's great. And now, not only does the device make rain, but the device creates, as you say, harmony. Harmony, because this is a torus, and that's what they're trying to prevent, that we wake up. Caught in the field of tension between the military and a threatening Islamization of the country, the supporters of democracy dream of a third way. A new Algeria is emerging. Faced with a lack of future prospects, many try to leave the country secretly via the sea, to try their luck in Europe. They are called HAARP here. They burn their identity cards and passports to cross the border unrecognized, sometimes at the risk of their lives. More than 500 of them are said to have died in 2018 while fleeing.
Quoi cette question? Mais elle n'a pas un rôle dans le mouvement. Elle est le mouvement. Quel est le rôle de l'homme dans la révolution? C'est la même chose. C'est une citoyenne algérienne qui sort parce qu'elle refuse la dictature.
كنت تشرحي صح في بلاد شغل تاع فيها حريه التعبير صح الحريه التعبير ما عطاوهالناش هما Si je n'ai pas un soutien franc et massif du peuple algérien, je considère qu'il doit être heureux dans sa médiocrité.
touchait ses frères et plus spécifiquement l'un d'entre eux, et qu'on surnommait à l'époque Monsieur 15%.
Il faut s'armer de patience parce qu'on n'a rien gagné.
Ceux qui ont le pouvoir sont les militaires. C'est une force organisée, c'est une force incontournable. La solution aujourd'hui passera forcément par une négociation avec l'armée algérienne et avec son chef, M. Ahmed Salah.
راح راس الحربه تما قعدوا لنا ومن بعد الاخرين اللي كما يقولوا كانوا مسؤولين معاه تما كي راح هو دوكا تكون كما يقولوا مواجهه مباشره بين الشعب وبين هذه العصابه اللي راح تساير.
As we know, we are exposed to a wide variety of external influences. For example, chemtrails. For example, HAARP. Developments which, in the meantime, have also arrived in the mainstream in terms of knowledge and information, and to which one is seemingly completely at the mercy of. Maybe are not that bad after all, and maybe there are possibilities to overcome these, yes, harmonize things and restore order. A lot has happened in Algeria since I built this device. There was terrorism without end, people were afraid, there was poverty, and they were paralyzed by that fear. And since 2005, where this device is there, I've seen a change in the population. Despite terrorism, they've started to just stand up and not fear. Because this vortex, what happens in the middle? This transformation, it happens where the flower of life is. Dodecahedron, for example, this formation in my water. This is love. It's a magnet. And this love transforms everything. Wilhelm Reich, he said that there are two forces that come out of an impulse. The first one, when it goes up, splits into fear. The opposite of fear is not hate, as many think. It's love. When I love, I open up. I'm not afraid. I can conquer the world. I'm blind. I can give everything away. Money is no object. When I'm afraid, I'll shrink. This device has to do with these forces, and the people who come near it, or the birds, or as in... Now we've built a device in Austria. It says here, for example, in an article, the sphere acupuncture system is completed. The operators, I can just read this out, the operators on first impressions. When we first commissioned the system for testing, two phenomena were observed. First, there were suddenly hundreds of birds to our amazement, because usually very few birds visit our property. It was an impressive experience. I believe their sensitivity made them the first to feel the change. The overall climate, the overall atmosphere of a particular area, a country, is changed. And when people saw that somehow HAARP doesn't work here, you cannot influence the people, because HAARP, what does HAARP do? HAARP uses the Schumann frequency, so to speak. The Schumann frequency is us. If I changed that, I can change my brainwaves, so to speak. And out of fears, out of frustrations, you can, nowadays, that's not a secret anymore, copy an aggression from someone into someone else who's been peaceful initially, so that this person starts ranting and raving. All it takes is a pulse. But through this system, I found out later, nothing happened. So the connection between, on the one hand, certain, I'd say, manipulative interventions. You mentioned chemtrails, you mentioned HAARP, on the consciousness of the people. All these things don't happen by chance. They have something to do with the fact that those who install this crap also have very specific intentions. Either stultification or lethargy, as is more likely the case here. So that, despite all the problems, despite all the difficulties, people will keep on being sluggish, or go towards aggression. And now, not only does the device make rain, but the device creates, as you say, harmony. Harmony, because this is a torus. And that's what they're trying to prevent, that we wake up, that we rise. Our DNA was manipulated, because someone who doesn't know that he's a slave is the best slave, so to speak. Yeah, sure. Goethe already said so. This new world order is happening on different levels. The signs are there. Via the device, I will become vertical, which means my toruses, the chakras are toruses, they turn correctly at the same time. And then, the strange thing happens. Then the Kundalini rises, because it's about to center us, and somehow really channel that energy. Then, the first thing we feel, we really do discard the fear. We are love. We are in contact with love. Fear makes us a wall, so to speak. And when I'm scared, then all is lost. One is completely blocked. You're blocked. Yes, indeed. You have to imagine this device like this. When I throw a rock into the water, circles are being formed. They're getting stronger and stronger. And if you know global scaling by Hartmut Müller, these are points of energy that intersect. And at these intersections, interferences, energy points are to be found. And it's important to install these devices consciously at these points, which creates low-pressure systems. Low-pressure areas is the worst thing that can happen to HAARP projects, Bluebeam, and so on. There are many people to whom I say, look at the sky, there's stripes. And they say, no, those are contrails. Did you see something like this back then? People are so flooded, they just believe the media. Back when I started, I realized that why did this happen with Algeria? And the people who come to me at Desert Greening, they say, what energy you have here? What's going on here? We feel so kind of... They can't help wondering. And I had him say something about Algeria. Not just about the desert, but about calming. May I remind you that 20 years ago, Algeria was the #1 terrorist country in North Africa. The Americans wanted to initiate this and then stage more Arab Spring movements, but it didn't work out. Then they had to go to Libya and Tunisia, etc. to do this. Because, he says, you can hardly believe it, that such a device creates peace. And let me remind you of the lecture 2 months ago. where he said, "I'm active in Ukraine, and it will calm down." There was a warlike boom there. And he installed something, and it was almost impossible to believe. It happened. Suddenly, the Minsk peace treaty came. Mrs. Merkel suddenly became active with Mr. Allnot. And a few days ago, Mr. Kerry was there and was kneeling down and whistled back Poroshenko. And they suddenly acted on peacefulness. But it was so actively important to me at the time that something should happen here. There was always one stripe after another hanging in the sky. See, it's surprisingly quiet now. Constantly low-level flights, one galaxy after the other. And those who lived there prayed. And we're hoping now that we can make peace there. And then we could actually win the Nobel Peace Prize for all this. So, I just wanted to get it right. Back to Ukraine. We had someone in Ukraine. We said, "Can't you take part of the technology?" Because, you know, it was so intense what was going on. We couldn't stand it anymore. And so, Andreas Pfeiffer from Paraguay had someone, who I think was here with you in the show. We hired him to just take part of the equipment there, and I made a remote treatment. Do you remember? I can operate these resonators that I have, even from a distance. It's all done in the subatomic realm. Yes, subtle energy. And they went there. We installed it. A week later, Roland and Merkel start acting. And it came to Minsk too. We couldn't stop being amazed. Then I made another reinforcement, because they wanted to get away from it and everything. Then I heard, I was just in Paraguay, Kerry was there. And he called off Poroshenko. Something was happening at that moment. Great project, and he also has a little something to say about it. Yes, he comments on it, and he also talks about the political situation in Paraguay. When I started, there was another coup, and something political was very severely wrong. But after this, a study was made, and Paraguay was rated #1 as the most peaceful country in the world. But he says something about that himself in the film. Hello, my name is Andreas Pfeiffer from the Parent Tree Farm in Paraguay, and I wanted to give you a brief account of what Majid's device has been achieving over the last 14 months. We had a lot of drought in Paraguay until February of 2014. It has often not rained for months, sometimes up to half a year. And, since we installed the device here, something really phenomenal has been happening. We've been getting lots of rain ever since, and on a regular basis. 2 years ago, we had a politically very troubled situation in Paraguay. The president was thrown in a coup. There were many deaths, riots, and there too, the situation has eased considerably. So, the Sphere Harmony device has significantly harmonized both the weather and the social situation in Paraguay. And we had a phase once last October where a lot of HAARP operations were carried out over in Paraguay. So to speak, artificial use of microwaves in the atmosphere. But Majid could solve the problem within 2 days. We strengthened the device, and since then, we've had great weather here regularly. Bright blue sky alternating with beautiful clouds and sufficient rainfall. And we were so enthusiastic that we also built the first German Sphere Harmony facility in Germany in June of 2014, close to Wiesbaden. We could witness there how right on the first day. All the dirt, all the dark, soiled, streaky clouds dissipated. And blue skies appeared there too. They were beautiful cumulus clouds. And the motivation why we did this was actually that the conflict over Ukraine and the warmongering in the media got worse and worse. And we just didn't want a war in Germany. And that's why we sponsored this Harmony device back then. Meanwhile, 3 more have been added, and we hope that Majid's missions will come true. That 200 of these spherical harmonic devices can be built worldwide, so that we can establish lasting peace on this beautiful planet. Thank you so much, Majid. And yes, I hope you come back to Paraguay soon.